Ex-teachers, professors of Reddit, what was your frick this moment? A female student I had disciplinary issues with accused me of hitting on her and making obscene gestures towards her. I'm an openly gay man and most of the staff knew this, yet the district still put me on suspension while they investigated. They were able to prove she was lying, but the district decided that the best course of action was to transfer me to another school instead of, punishing the student. I quit at the end of the school year and got a job in banking. Dang, that is fricked up. A student had a mental breakdown in the library, smashed a wooden chair, and gouged a pencil in his arm while screaming that he wanted us all to go away, and I got reamed out for not calling campus security before I called 911. I know you got reamed out, but thank you for calling 911 and not campus security. Most will not do anything. You probably saved that kid. I had a student that copied off another kid during a test. I gave him a 0%. The parents came in to complain to administration that, since I hadn't explicitly said during the first day orientation that cheating wasn't allowed, it was an unfair punishment. Administration forced me to allow him an opportunity to retake the test. He never retook the test, and the grade of 0 stood. Still, I was so disillusioned by the entire experience that I started looking the next day at college programs that I could use to transition away from public education. Proof that some that go into administration are wholly unfit, like it has to be explained that cheating is bad. 2 weeks into my first year teaching 9th grade math, I had a girl attack another girl for no reason in my class. She was grabbing onto her hair really tightly and I was trying to break it up. Another student tried to help me out and somehow the instigating student managed to punch him in the face and give him a bloody nose while still holding onto the other student's hair. Now what makes this story relevant is I literally said the words frick this while trying to break up the fight. Not loud, not to a student, but just like frick this I am not gonna let this happen in my class right now. Well, the instigating student decided to tell the principal that I was cursing at her, despite the other students in the class supporting me and the fact that this student had a history of violence. I got a letter in my permanent file saying I had used inappropriate language towards a student. Frick that. Teaching taught me a lot, but I couldn't do it for more than a couple years. Really respect those that make it their career. Schools alike. Kids fighting for no reason. No fricks given. Teacher whispers a cuss word while trying to stop that fight. WTFFF. How fricking dare you? Frick your career. When the principal told me one of my students' mother was getting her secondary education certification so she could move up to teach HS math, where her son was, so they wouldn't be renewing my contract to teach the following year, but they were in need of a network administrator for the school district, and they were willing to pay me a teacher's $25,000 salary to do it, and I would be answering to each building principal, like a janitor, not to the superintendent, like a district level admin. So they moved you from teaching kids to teaching servers. Going through my frick this moment right now. Been in special education since 2007. District I work in desperately wants teachers to start new classrooms due to overcrowding, yet they don't want to hire the right people. They'd rather hire fellow locals from high school in the area who the admins know versus hiring qualified people from the outside. Our special education admin has 0 spec ed experience and his replacement also has no spec ed experience. Not fun at all. The principal's niece made a B in my freshman geography class and she wanted me to bump it to an A, because the child could not get into Texas A&M with a B in a freshman class on her record. This school also pressured teachers to fail no students. End of year assessing students to see who'd progress through to the second year. While assessing the work, the department head came in and said we had to fail X amount due to facilities and resources for the next year. He then returned an hour later and said that due to the budget we actually needed to pass a higher number than originally thought. I completely ignored what he said and carried on marking on merit, but it was the proverbial straw. When admin wouldn't let me take more than 4 days off after a close friend died unexpectedly. "You're letting the kids down" is a phrase I heard over and over again as I tried to reason with them. My girlfriend died. "You're letting the kids down." I'm in the hospital. "You're letting the kids down." I have terminal cancer and am bedridden. "You're letting the kids down." Looks at your gravestone. "You're letting the kids down." Parents yelling at me for accusing their little prince of acting out and getting zero support from administration. I failed a college student who never came to class and missed both the midterm and final exams. The influential parents complained to the school. The administration later went into the digital records and changed the fail to a passing grade without my knowledge. I found it out later, third hand. Ergo, I refused to sign a second-year contract they offered to me. That kind of thing can cause a school to lose its accreditation if reported. Caught a student cheating, but stupid cheating. Cheated off of someone else with the wrong answers and the same wrong spelling. When I spoke to him regarding taking a new test, generous on my part considering it should have been a 0 per school policy, he refused and said I would be hearing from his parents. I, of course, did hear from them via my principal within an hour. Gotta love kids and their phones readily available. Fast forward to a meeting with the student, parents, and principal. I had his test and the one from which he cheated. Upon showing this to the parents, I fully expected them to understand and hold their son accountable. Nope. Instead, the parents demanded an apology from me for branding their son a cheater, which would negatively impact him for the rest of his life. And also, it's the least I could do since they were paying my salary. When I said I would not apologize for catching their son cheating, the father then said I was lucky I was a woman because otherwise he would punch me in the face. Nice. So, yeah, good times. Glad I got my master's degree for that. Give me what I want or I will physically harm you. And the pattern continues with their son. When the prestigious high school I was working at focused on sports more than academics. On top of that, it turned out that the principal overrode teachers' marks if they tried giving students a failing grade. Frick that. I was teaching middle school English while overseas in Europe when two students, a boy and a girl, began viciously fighting after the boy made comments about the girl's mother. For most people, this would be easy to break up, but as a 5 feet 5 inches manlet, both the 13-year-old kids had several inches and pounds on me. When I positioned myself in between them, they took a break from fighting each other to work as a team to push me over a desk. They then promptly resumed punching each other's lights out. I quit that week. When I positioned myself in between them, they took a break from fighting each other to work as a team to push me over a desk. At least you got them to work together instead of against each other for a second. That's an all-around crap situation though. My mom retired as a special education teacher after a student bit her hard enough to draw blood. She had to get a ton of tests for everything from hepatitis to freaking rabies. She was fine, thankfully, but that was when she decided that she'd had enough. She went on to sub for non-special ed kids and eventually to do administrative work at a charity for ASD individuals. I feel for your mom. I worked at Target as one of their rent-a-cops and got bit by someone we were restraining. It broke the skin. They sent me to the doctors and had to get a litany of tests. It's not fun. Kid poured gasoline under the door of my room after hours and lit it, burning most of the room. The facility guys worked all weekend to clean it up and paint it, hauling in new desks to replace those burned. Not long after that, I found out I could make more money with less hassle by waiting tables at the beach. Plus the beach has women in bikinis. I was gone a week later. You haven't studied for the test tomorrow, do you? A. Pretend to be sick and stay home to study. B. Guess the answers on the test. C. Burn down the entire freaking classroom. Was substituting at a low-income middle school for the day. About 40 students per class. Just had a simple worksheet for them to work on every hour rotation. Spent the day breaking up fist fights, chairs or desks being thrown across the room, students having screaming matches, students climbing and dancing on desks, students just leaving class during the chaos. I had 6 students turn in the completed worksheet for an entire day of class rotations. I realized I was no longer a teacher but a prison guard with less benefits and no way to defend myself. I guarantee 80% of these kids will end up dead or in prison before the age of 25. Never again. Another one that resonated with me. Glad I'm out. So I was at A for a college course, Introduction to Information Assurance. One of the labs for the class involved performing a SQL injection. If you don't know what that means, just know that you have to build your input string carefully. The attack required a very specific input. Well, this one student was getting frustrated and asked for some help. After looking at his input string, I realized he had it just right, except he was missing a terminator on part of the input, semicolons. Am I right? I pointed out the simple mistake and he didn't take it well. He smashed his own face on the keyboard, logged off the machine, thanked me, and left the class. I knew this level of teaching wasn't for me. I don't know what he's been up to, but I can't imagine a coworker responding to bugs like that. Forgetting a semicolon can do that to you. I was a high school teacher with 7 years experience in my district and a master's degree. I was making $49K. This was 2013. I was talking to a friend who was in from out of town. This friend had barely made it through his bachelor's degree, even with a lot of help from him and other friends. Over dinner he was complaining about not getting a good enough raise, so he was only making $143K at his software consulting job. He didn't do the technical stuff, more customer relations. I left teaching to make more money. But it has taken a while, and I really miss working with the kids. Wish I had stayed in teaching. During my student teaching, I was at parent-teacher conferences. I was speaking to a parent whose son was failing, mostly because he did none of his homework. She was angry with me and pretty much told me it was my fault. She asked me why I wasn't making sure he did his homework. I said, it is homework, meaning work you do at home. It is your responsibility to help him and make sure he does it. She complained about me to the teacher I was student teaching for. He warned me that teaching is very political and that parents can keep you from getting tenure or get you fired. Other teachers told me that this was the climate nowadays. Children are not held accountable and parents blame you for their lack of parenting skills. I decided that it was not worth it to finish the teaching program, so I finished early with a degree in history and policy. The subjects I would have taught, history and social studies, are X. My degree is pretty much useless, but I still make more than a teacher does. I work and teach in higher ed. I still teach online and had a student a few semesters ago who did hardly any work but asked for an exemption from all the work she didn't do. I had to reply and confirm she was asking to get a passing grade for doing no work because either I was just reading it wrong. There's an amazing amount of student entitlement that I didn't see 10 years ago. Sort of like I pay for a passing grade in this course instead of I pay for access to college level content. I think all the really great free resources online have changed the way they look at learning and we haven't kept up. A bit off topic, but I've recently been spending time at my kid's elementary school setting him up with an IEP. Just working with the staff and watching how fast paced it is really surprised me. I'd be in a meeting and suddenly a walkie would go off and they'd have to go out and handle a student issue and then come back to me. And that switching gears process is non-stop. And this might just be because I live in a relatively small town, but it seems like every teacher and staff member knows every kid's name and really seems to care. After spending years working with doctors trying to help my kid, it's the people at his school who've dramatically changed his and our life in just a few months. I know I couldn't do the work they do and we will be forever indebted to them for their intervention. I was an adjunct, at the bottom of the totem pole, and got my class assignments last and only if the more senior people everyone had gotten their minimum number of classes. They'd hold off on this until the literal last minute, and I'd find out if I was teaching 3 days before the semester started. For the last 2 or 3 years, I was only teaching online and only in the summer. During that time I moved away and started a business, so it was all fine with me. The last summer, I got 2 classes I'd never taught before with about a month before they started. I had to learn a totally new subject for one, and remember stuff I hadn't looked at since grad school for the other. They almost took one class away from me after I'd busted my butt to prepare for it, because nobody else's classes were filling up. The other class had 6 people in it. I was told I could teach it prorated, for 6/11ths of the usual rate, and I refused. I didn't have time to learn that stuff, teach 2 classes, and keep my business going. My wife is a teacher. She started in the UK public sector, but left after 8 years. After a few months break, she went into private education. There wasn't any one thing that led her to quit. It was working in a system that, over 8 years, saw 3 curriculum changes, 2 exam changes, and 3 changes to the inspection process, a system that demanded more and more from the staff while cutting funding and freezing pay, where she'd get to work at 7 AM and leave at 6 PM, do some work at home, and spend almost every Sunday marking or planning or both, just to keep afloat. A system that was constantly narrowing its scope and becoming ever more inflexible, to the detriment of the children she was teaching, where her choice was either to teach her students to pass the exam, but deprive them of useful mathematical knowledge and critical thinking skills, or to teach them these skills, but run the risk of them doing poorly in their exams. This would jeopardize not only those kids, but future pupils as well, because poor exam results would bring the school's rating down, leaving it open to being taken over by an academy chain, which would be even worse. It was a system that took an enthusiastic and excellent teacher, ground her down and stretched her so thin she basically had a breakdown and almost left teaching forever. You have been visited by the magical duck. You don't have to do anything. He will simply give you a good day today. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day, you magnificent people.